Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast, your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Joe Dejene, a repeat guest. He was originally on episode 63, I believe, probably close to 2 years ago now. So we have Joe back on the show live from Mexico City. What's up, man?
What's up? How's it going? How's it going, Vance?
Doing good, doing good. I guess
Nice.
the audience can't see your lovely apartment there because we're just recording audio. But it's such a vibe. Do you want to explain your place? Because it's
My
very
place. Yeah, well, I signed this apartment last July, and I didn't know that there was going to be a heat wave in Mexico City. So my spot, it's top floor. It's the penthouse spot. It's got my home office is the living room. I'm single, so I got like a big open area, and I've got plants all along the walls. Like some trees go up to the ceiling. In fact, the trees are falling over because they're taller than where the ceiling is. Plants all around me, balcony outside. You can see the sun coming in. I closed like half the curtains, but you can
dude,
definitely see the sun setting.
dude, I'm calling it the atrium or something, the greenhouse, the
The
bird,
tree house.
the tree house.
It's the tree house, yeah. 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 So this spot would have been amazing in Mexico City a few years ago, or maybe even last year. This year was not the time to live here.
Too hot.
Yeah. Which kind of leads us. I'm looking at just getting a little small place that I can put an AC unit in and oh, not have to be outside of from 1 to 5 p.m. But yeah, yeah, my place it looks very nice, but it gets hot. And
It's
Mexico
like,
City, Mexico City never crossed 80 degrees when I lived here, like 4 years before, and this year every day is 90.
just getting grilled. Yeah,
I'm
for
just getting
anyone
cooked.
for anyone listening, it's like you know how when they this doesn't really happen in the US, but it happens in Latin America where they build the building, it's whatever it is, it's 10 stories, and then later, like after the building's built, maybe like a year later, a decade later, they just randomly they just randomly add like a mini half floor on the top of the building with probably with no permits at all. And obviously the architecture is very different than the rest of the building because they're using kind of random materials, and that's kind of how your very artsy place came together. It just got stuck on the building after the
uh
fact, I think.
yeah, I never asked about the history, but that does add up because every other unit is 4 bedrooms and mine is two.
There you go.
And mine has 2 stories. Like so, yeah. Wait, it's almost. I don't know if it's a loft, but it's got that upstairs room. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting spot.
So for the audience, a couple things we were thinking about talking about in this episode. Going to get a little bit philosophical, I think, because Joe has been a long-term digital nomad slash expat. I won't go into the whole background story that people can listen to in the original episode, but you've been doing this since what, like 2015, maybe earlier?
16 full time, but 13, 13 part time, 16 full time.
Okay, so eight
So like
eight
8 years
years,
full
eight
time.
years full time living outside the U.S.
Yeah.
And some topics we were kind of thinking about is you're actually sort of enticed to move back to the US and you're kind of weighing the pros and cons there. Similar topics, is LatAm still worth it now that at least Mexico City is a lot more expensive than it used to be? Where else would you go if not Mexico City?
Mhm.
Is Mexico still king? Is that still the spot? And the effect of the nomad expat presence in Mexico, and I guess really nomad hubs around Latin America, because it's very different than it was in 2019 in terms of the number of
Yeah.
foreigners that you're seeing in places like Mexico City. So tall task. You want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, the world is a changing. So digital nomadism has been completely mainstream. It happened during and slightly after the pandemic. I remember I was in Playa, which was like as open as it could get. in hard quarantine, and I just remember every week more foreigners were showing up, and like like weekender foreigners, like not a word of Spanish. You know, they land at the Cancun airport and they give the guy $80 to take him 20 minutes in the taxi. I saw those changes happening there. Then I noticed it happening here in Mexico City. That was like the second half of 2020. Um, Also, Mexico itself is booming economically, and so the cost of living has come up a lot here. Um, in my first apartment I rented, it was a lot smaller than where I'm at now, but it was $500 a month, and I'd say it's if let's say you want like 100 square meters, I don't know what that is in feet, or and you want to have a home office in a central part of town, probably looking at 2,000. Maybe you can get something like 1,700. If you really look around, you can find deals, but standard you're going to be looking at like $2,000. That's 7 years, so prices have gone up a lot. Going out to eat used to be $5, $6. It's like 20, 25, 30, especially in neighborhood I live in is more affluent.
You're in
So
Polanco, which
uh,
is like the most expensive neighborhood, sort of.
no, it's like the fourth most expensive neighborhood, but
Hmm.
it's on the high end though.
That's where like the luxury shopping is, and
It's the most luxurious, but the touristy neighborhoods are much more expensive
hmm
because the people living here are like living here, so they're not tourists.
hmm
But yeah, things have gone up. You see that in Mexico. I mean, there's think about the places where expats normally go and where I've spent time. We we talked to Argentina. Argentina, their new president just cut subsidies, and my friends there say cost of living in like simple things like food has about doubled in price. So Argentina was really cheap not long ago when I was there,
hmm
and now that cost of living has come up. So now you're paying a lot of money, and like I'll just let my opinion known. Pretty much everything you get in Argentina is low quality. You get steak, wine, and empanadas done well, and then everything else is going to just be like half-assed, late, uh, like not done with quality. So you're paying more and like still have a low quality. Speaking of paying more for low quality, my old stomping grounds is Brazil, and Brazil was always the worst value. It's like for adventure, for fun, for the nature. There's a lot of fun to be had there, but it was always like you're paying a lot and getting a little. Always really weak value.
hmm That's
Uh,
flipped, kind of.
no, it's still expensive.
Brazil?
Yeah, it's not any cheaper than it used to be. It's definitely not cheaper. I mean, Airbnbs are like double what they were 3 years ago.
Mm.
So yeah, Brazil is still not cheap, but at least like there was no teaser right there. So uh, I guess there was a time when it was a little cheaper when the dollar first went to 5 reals, which was like 20. Damn, I was living there. 16, 16, 17, 16, I think. Something around those lines. It felt cheap because when I first went, it was like 2.2 to 1. So Brazil still always been expensive. Argentina now about double cost of living. It was nice going out for $6 steaks when I lived there. I know $12 steaks probably doesn't sound that bad to everyone, but it's always like I know I'm getting older when I see like, oh, it's not like it used to be. I start talking about how much things used to cost. Colombia, although I've only been in one city recently, what everyone tells me, what all the guys who spend time there tell me is you still can get like a decent price on cost of living, but doing anything outside, it's pretty expensive. Partying there, having drinks is not cheap at all. Like you get $15 cocktails in even in the B cities in Colombia, a cocktail is at least $10. Um, Restaurants not all that cheap. Maybe like you get away with like $10. So those are the main, probably the four most popular countries where expats and nomads live and go to, and each one like has changed. And Mexico has no doubt. Anyone who's listening has probably been to Mexico. Uh, if y'all were not here pre-pandemic, the prices are like way up. And Mexico is a good quality of life. It's second world. Overall, it's nice. If you're a middle class American, you still afford a better life here than you do in the US. And in my opinion, but it's going up and it's not going to stop anytime soon. I don't see the cost of living like stopping going up here anytime soon. So 2 years from now, I'm going to be like, oh man, at least 2024, it was only $20 for lunch. So I'm
Okay.
coming up. Yeah. So this has been on my mind because I'm coming up on like the end of my apartment lease, and I've been thinking like, do I really want to spend another year here? I hadn't really thought
In the
where
atrium.
else. Yeah, where else I would go? Where do I go for a year? Definitely not. Like I'm 35, so living in South America for a year just isn't that appealing to me. Like that's a young man's game, in my opinion. Just like being really
South America.
South America's a young man's game for sure. That's make
Okay.
that the quote. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've been saying that for a while. I mean, I was a young man there, and I didn't mind the like the lowered quality of life. It was worth it for the adventure, the fun and the adventure. But I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that again anytime soon. Maybe I mean, look, maybe there's some parts where that is worth it. But overall, South America's a young man's game for sure. Yeah, and you're older, you want to make trips to the U.S. for business purposes. Your parents get older, you want to visit your parents more. It's like it adds up.
Mm. Okay.
So,
So you're saying as you get older, you value proximity to the U.S. more.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I enjoy visiting the U.S. more. That's the other thing. The U.S. is, I mean, there's a reason why everyone wants to go there.
Mm. So you're saying that maybe when in past years when you went to the U.S. you weren't too thrilled about it or nothing special, and now after all these years in Mexico City and Latin America, you're kind of seeing the value to you know to the U.S. and to sidewalks that are walkable and
Yeah, having
sidewalks
sidewalks is great. Although
and tap water.
you don't walk anywhere in most of the U.S.
That's true. They
That
don't
still
even need the
stands. Like,
sidewalk.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I walk way more. I actually have a nicer. Polanco has nicer sidewalks than most of the U.S. to be honest. But like, it, it's nice having I would say AC right now. I just came back from Arizona about a week ago, and man, it was nice having like American AC. Like you don't have to stand in front of the unit.
Mm,
You just walk into the house and it's already cool. Like you have central air. Uh,
central air.
yeah, yeah. Because I've been sweating up here. The thing about moving to the U.S. is, for most people, the tax situation it becomes like significantly more expensive in taxes and car situation. Those are the two. Those are the two like biggest additional expenses.
And when you say car situation, does that mean sort of the very binary nature of if I go to the US, I need to start leasing a car immediately, and then like you can't really break the lease kind of thing?
I don't even know what I would do, man. You rent a car for like a month while you look for one to buy. I don't even. I haven't bought a car in a very long time, so yeah, I don't even know what my process would be there. But having a car, insurance, gas, maintenance is it's going to be like a pretty large extra expense, either like one time plus ongoing. So
Yeah,
that's the downside.
that's the car problem. Just the fact that it costs 1,500 a month or something.
Yeah. I like have no idea what a car payment is normally is or how much like I don't know how much a Camry costs. That was like my goal I set for myself was if I move back to the US I want to just be able to Uber everywhere still.
Hmm.
So not there right now. Like that would be super expensive. But yeah, I'd like to be able to. There's probably like what 4 or 5 cities in the states you don't need a car. So not a lot.
Right. So it sounds like maybe a broader theme here is that if you've spent all your 20s and early 30s in Latin America, you come back to the US and it's almost like you're learning the adulting thing for the first time in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, like I tried it when I was a teenager. I wasn't quite there, and now in my 30s, I'm like, hey, this isn't all. It doesn't feel all that bad. Like I didn't like this so much when I was 22, but yeah, it doesn't. It's not so bad. You have the extra expenses, and I'm not like U.S. would be nice. That is a lot of extra expenses. Like easily spending 5 or 6K a month more. I think that would be easy because you also get used to living a good lifestyle in uh, in Latin America.
So it sounds like the other kind of narrative that you're saying is that Latin America isn't as cheap as it used to be, and the prices are so high, at least in the major cities, that it's basically just like being in the US. And now it sort of changes the calculus of the cost benefit of being in Latin America. Am I understanding
Yeah,
this right?
because no matter where you go, even if you're in the richest neighborhood in Mexico City, it's not nearly as nice as Scottsdale, Arizona. And then there's places in the U.S. that are nicer than Scottsdale. So if you're in Polanco, is about as nice as Latin America gets. Of everywhere I've been, I'd probably say it's the nicest neighborhood, other than like the neighborhoods with mansions in them, which are far out of the way, and there's no reason an expat would live there. Polanco's about as nice as it gets, and yeah, it's still a very noticeable drop off in quality of life, quality of new people you can meet, networking opportunities. It's still a good life, and I don't know. I'm kicking around the idea. I think Central Europe and potentially East Europe may have something. I probably should have done some more homework before I got on, but there's a few cities there I've looked into, and I'm curious to go there and spend time. Probably next year.
Mhm.
Probably next year I'll do a stint there because I have other reasons to go there, and yeah, I think it's worth looking at. The one thing there
You're
is
talking about Arizona still?
no, I'm talking about Europe.
Okay, Europe. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry. Sorry.
yes, Central and Eastern Europe.
Central Eastern Europe.
Yeah, I picked out a few cities, looked into what there is to do there, got like a rough idea of cost of living. Tempting, tempting, because that may be one of the last places with value. Like,
Let's pick up. It's going to be too much for us to compare LatAm versus the US to Europe.
okay,
So let's kind of stick on this US versus LatAm theme that we haven't touched upon on the podcast in this way, at least
hmm
not recently or to this extent. But this is definitely the type of thing that digital nomads and expats talk about when they get together. We
hmm
love to complain about the pricing and and also revel in how cheap some things are, and then complain about how other things are the same price as the U.S. So how you just got back from Arizona,
yeah, yeah, a week ago.
and you go there a lot. You have like a bit of a business community there, is my understanding.
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
And so I mean I've been to Arizona. I mean I wasn't. I mean it's cool, but it's really just like endless plazas of in and outs for the most part,
hmm
and some cool rock formations for climbing.
hmm
Um, so the larger story here is that Latin America is getting expensive, and I guess maybe I'll take the other side. Is do you really don't you think this is just like a Polanco, Mexico City? You're in the most expensive place in Latin America thing versus if you went to like because Arizona is tier B,
uh
U.S. tier C really Phoenix.
hmm
It's not New York City. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you think about it? Because it's not exactly apples to apples, but so yeah.
Well, I mean, overall, there's still good value here because U.S. is very expensive. But how do I think about it? Is price it out. What are like the what are the big new expenses of living in the U.S.? What's the potential benefit? And like, is it better to consider living there versus just visiting regularly? Because visiting, still living here, living somewhere with a good airport, and visiting regularly is that's still like a way to do it.
Dude, Phoenix is like a cheap direct flight from
Yeah,
Mexico.
you say cheap. I mean, dude, it's like $700 last time I bought it.
What?
Yeah. Well, exit row.
Joe's a big boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
See,
Exit row.
I occasionally tweet out something to the equivalent of like, even if the US and Latin America were the same price, same cost of living, I would still prefer Latin America just because
No way,
the
man.
energy,
No,
the
you no,
culture,
you're lying.
the
You're telling the
food,
story.
the
It's your
weather.
it's the theme of your podcast. You have to say it, but no way, man. Come on.
Dude, it's the vibe.
You're a
It's
few
these
years younger than me still.
it's the experience.
No
These
way.
experiences just do not happen in the US. You don't get 100 people dancing in a park in the US. You don't get um, street food. You don't get the family values. Um, I think in a lot of ways, Latin America is better well, we know it's definitely better for lifestyle.
Yeah. But if the cost was the same, we would
Yeah,
all be on our way back. I'm looking up right now, I'm looking up the biggest flash mobs, trying to find the US biggest flash mob because I'm sure 100 people to go dance. Grand Central Station had 200 people do a
flash
flash
mob.
mob.
Yeah, I don't think
There
a
you go.
flash mob and
Doesn't count.
some sexy Cuban salsa are the same thing, but
Yeah, probably not. Uh, but no, man. It, family values, yes, I do. I do like just like observing Mexican families at the parks here because I'm like, man, they just they're almost like a '60s sitcom family, but in
hmm
Spanish.
hmm
Like the way they all are. Like the fathers seem like very involved with the kids, always playing like um present. I don't see families out together and kids on devices here. And when I go to the US, that's one of the first things I notice is
exactly.
kids are glued to tablets. Uh that's a big one. So there's some, yeah, of course there's some benefits. Food here I would say beats anywhere in the US still. But yeah, even Mexico City, which was like the safe haven, like anyone listening here, I bet 90% of your audience has been and has like spent at least 2 weeks in Mexico City. I mean, man, prices up, serious climate change here. Like, why this apartment? I thought this apartment would be great because I haven't lived here for a few years, and I came back and the climate is probably 10 degrees average higher year round than it was like 4 years ago.
Think so.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So it's now an AC. It's a city that requires AC when none of the buildings have it. So that's something you have to negotiate with your landlord. Uh, yeah, there's just a lot of extra. There's a lot of things that it's just it's different than it was. I would say anyone who's coming here for the first time or anyone who came here like during or after the pandemic probably doesn't care. Like they're probably still in the honeymoon phase. Um, it still is cheaper, so they're not comparing. They're just comparing it to what the U.S. is now, which also got more expensive. But they're not comparing it to what the U.S. was before. Or sorry, what Mexico was before, or Mexico, Colombia, Argentina. They're not comparing it to what it was before. I guess Argentina they are because that one just happened like in the last 6-ish months.
hmm
But yeah, yeah, man, a lot of changes coming, and just like anything, like when we rented a car and went up to Orizaba, uh, dude, that car they gave me that thing was a beater, and they gave me an eighth of tank. I'm leaving there like es un octavo. I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. This thing's gonna run out of gas on the way to fill it up.
hmm
So just having to deal with stuff like that, like everything being half-assed. which is that's part of the charm. I know everything taking forever. Like you walk into a store, if there's three people in line at a checkout in any store, then I'm out. Like it's not going to happen. And this is the fastest paced part of Latin America that I found. So you do that anywhere in South America, man. I mean, you start scrolling because you're gonna you're gonna be in line. Three people ahead of you. That's like 15 minutes minimum. Like, go do a lap around the building.
I find when I'm in the US, I don't even go to corner stores. And when I'm in Mexico City or in Latin America, like I go a lot. I'm getting an electrolyte,
Uh huh.
grabbing a couple beers,
Yeah.
paying my Telcel. When I'm in the US, I don't like go in 7-Eleven. You know what I mean?
It's only when you stop to pump gas. That's really it. If you pump gas, you're like, I'm gonna go inside and see what's going on. But yeah, it's because we don't walk. We're not from like big major walkable cities. I'm from Pittsburgh, so like ain't nobody walking around there. You got a foot of snow half the year.
hmm
So
Hey guys, quick break from the podcast to tell you about job stacking. If you're a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Haltza, author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income by implementing his paycheck multiplication layering method. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond 20K a month. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, if you're interested in unleashing your earning potential and doubling your income, then click the link in the description and book a call with Rolf right now. Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
yeah, so it's not walkable.
This is what I mean.
Walkability is
Wouldn't you
huge.
rather live in a walkable city?
Is there a what?
Living in a walkable city, I just could never do the Phoenix thing. I could never do the Phoenix thing. I know you could
Yeah.
maybe be in like a building in downtown Scottsdale and
Yeah.
like maybe not need a car, but everyone would think
Mm.
you're a weirdo.
No, no, you need a car in Scottsdale for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if you could just
Scottsdale's good. I hit up Tampa last year. That is a walkable city. It's pretty cool, but I guarantee you it'd start to get boring because it's very small. And I also guarantee I would start wishing I lived in Miami, which requires a car. I think it'd just be like a stepping stone into moving to Miami.
Mhm. Well,
Uh,
I just did a El Salvador roundtable episode a couple
mhm,
days ago. Recorded it. Hopefully, it comes up before this one.
mhm.
Uh, and we were talking about the cost of living, and it
Yeah.
seemed cheaper than even like cheap parts of Mexico. Like they're
Yeah,
still renting houses there for I don't know, $700 US for a whole house or
yeah. But then
stuff like that.
you're in El Salvador.
I mean
Uh,
they're
what are you
using the
doing?
US dollar. It's
Yeah, but what are you doing in El Salvador?
well,
I mean, if there's a
El Salvador is
community,
dude.
you got a group of friends going, it could be cool. I was last there in 2013, so it's been a long time for me.
Yeah, I think it's
But
changed. I think that might be where like the real community is now
really,
in a lot of ways.
okay,
Definitely Mexico City too, obviously, but I think it's
I'm
becoming like top five hub.
interesting.
Yeah.
I've met a couple guys who did houses in El Salvador, the crypto guys, and it sounds like they gave themselves a really nice setup. Like they rented a huge house, they had whatever need they had someone there to take care of it for them. So sure, you can live well like that, but within El Salvador, I mean, what are you really doing? That's a tiny, tiny country. Uh, I I did a tour. I was really lucky, actually. I don't think I ever told you this, But in 2013, my friend in Texas, he went to school with a really well off Salvadoran guy, and so we went down for like 10 days, and this dude just showed us the whole country. Like, there's a
Hmm.
nice lake, there's some nice beaches. If you surf, you can entertain yourself because there's huge waves, like
Hmm.
too big for someone who's not a competent surfer, like a good surfer. Um, Coffee farms, like we went to his family's coffee farms, Lake Beach coffee. Um,
That's
I
good to
think we were
hear.
getting steak dinners there for, I don't know, maybe a little more than $6, maybe $10 a meal. Uh, went to like, all his favorite restaurants. It was a cool tour, but after 10 days, we had seen it, man. I mean, from then on, it's just
Hmm.
like
I don't know. I think the nature's pretty lit. Like there's definitely enough
you can do some trails.
volcanoes. I
You can
think
do
there's
some
enough
nice trails.
trails to last you a couple of years. Uh,
Oh my God! Talk to me after you've been in El Salvador for a couple of years. We'll see. We'll see how ready
yeah.
you are to leave 3 months in.
I think the other thing though is that Mexico City is like a particular lifestyle
Yeah,
where um personally I like when I go there my nose starts stuffing up and the traffic's insane and
yeah,
it's a vibe. It's definitely a vibe I enjoy. I have to end up going there like all the time for one reason or the other.
yeah.
But and it's a vibe, but I wouldn't want to be in the middle of that chaos like full time, you know?
I know, man. I have to put my podcast microphone on, or else you hear the cars honking outside. It's like I, it's tough, man. Big crowded cities. I don't love it, but also like I tried living in 2021. I tried living in various other parts of Mexico, and I can definitively say I would not live anywhere in Mexico except here. Like
Mm.
it, going for
What? You
yeah,
wouldn't live anywhere
I'm
else in
talking
Mexico?
year lease.
Year
Zero
lease.
chance. Zero chance I'd live anywhere else in Mexico.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. You could go to the beach for a month. That'd be fun. You can drive down the coastline. That'll be amazing. You can venture all around Chiapas. That's even cooler than the coastline. But there's nowhere else I would not live in any of the other major cities because everything is just worse than here. Well, here I'll pick on Guadalajara because I bet there's some Guadalajara fans listening. Guadalajara is
Yeah.
like a little bit cheaper, right? That's kind of nice. It takes twice as long to do anything in Guadalajara. Like tapatillas move very, very slow. You get some hate mail on that one.
Not that slow, but all right.
They're as slow as being like out in the countryside in a town of 10,000 people.
All right.
They are. Go to next time you're in Guadalajara, go to an Oxxo and pick out your thing and get in line and just set a timer. And man, I get if it's less than 10 minutes, then I'll buy your flight home, man. It's not so Guadalajara is way slower. It has great food, except like tortas ahogadas. That's whatever. That's not that good. They have some good birria, but like it's not. The food is definitely not as good as here. It's walkable, but it's not as walkable as here. It's really more of a bikeable city because like you're walking pretty far. You can walk to your gym, but it's going to be far. Like the point A to point B is further. Polanco is a bit of that too. Polanco is not as dense as the touristy neighborhoods in Mexico City, but the Americas where anyone would stay in Guadalajara, everything's a 20-minute walk. Where here it's like a 5 to 10 minute walk. Um, what else? The girls are prettier, but on average, but we're not going to elaborate on that. Uh, it's just like overall not as like appealing of a place. There's way less variety of things to do there. Uh, it's yeah, there's just a lot less. I would no like Jake tried to get me to go to Guadalajara when I told him I'm coming back to Mexico, and I was like, this is not even a conversation, man. There's no way when Mexico City exists, unless this city gets leveled, there's no way I'd live in a different city. And no one's even been to Monterrey. Like that's the second biggest city here. No one even goes. So that tells you something. Like it's not going to be that cool. Like where else would A single guy live in Mexico City, in Mexico. Where?
Um, yeah, the single is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Border like well, just livable in general. I think anywhere on the Pacific is basically livable, like top to bottom.
Escondido is livable. You're just
Hmm.
gonna not have internet.
I mean, Starlink,
I
Starlink.
mean, like Vallarta is actually interesting. I've only been there on weekends. Vallarta is pretty nice. I imagine it would get pretty boring. What else is up there? Tijuana? I've never been. I've never been there, so I can't say. Nobody I've talked to, Mexican or American, really likes it that much. Just say it's like just go for a dirty weekend, and get out.
Okay, and so the way that we phrased it in the notes is topics. Is Mexico still king?
Yeah, yeah. That is a really good question. Is Mexico still king? So there's three things that like how Mexico has changed. When I came to Mexico City the first time, it was 2017, and I had moved out of South Brazil. I was in Florianopolis. Florianopolis has like total dog shit infrastructure. You know, if you're a surfer and you like it, that's cool. I've lived there for over a year. I have friends there, but the quality of life is just not very good. So I came to Mexico City, planned on being here for 10 days. I ended up staying for, I think, 2.5 years. Uh, I'm just literally walking into my first Airbnb here. I was like, this is amazing. I got this like nice 2 bedroom place. I was probably paying like $30 a night. I could walk to everything. Yeah, I was like, this is leaps and bounds better than anywhere else I've visited or lived in, south of Texas. And there's three things that have changed since then. So we talked about price, um, climate change. That's a real big one. But yeah, 10 degrees hotter when your annual high is 80, and then
I need some statistics on this, dude. Uh,
go
I don't know
for
how
it.
much of this is just the greenhouse effect of your place, or it's like the city, but it's true. Like the sun definitely beams down because of
Open, just search
the high
Mexico City
elevation.
weather now. The whole week, the next 7 days is going to
I
be
know. I know. I
highs of
need to see like
90s.
a multi-year chart to see if there's actually like
Yeah, go
a
ahead.
material increase in the.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's been climate change, man. There
I
has
kind of
been.
believe it. I mean, the pollution definitely is pretty nuts.
Yeah. But pollution's been here, so that's always been part of the equation. I don't think it's significantly worse now. I mean, it's always kind of like bugged me a bit, but not too much. But yeah, pollution, and then the third is just like mass tourism, where it was touristy when I got here. New York Times named Mexico City the I think the best city to visit in 2016. So there were tourists when I got here, but now we have mass tourism. So that does change things. Like, you don't get the feel that you're in Mexico. Like there's a few neighborhoods I don't go to too often, and you can guess where they are. Um, but it removes the charm a bit. But I also don't blame anyone who like I can't say I'm mad at people for coming here because they're just doing exactly what I did a few years later. But yeah, so those things have changed, and I'm wondering, like, is Mexico still king? Because I don't see anywhere else that really has dethroned it. Um, like the only other place that really comes to mind, I'm not going to blow up the spot by saying it, is Paraguay. Like, I think Asuncion is, you have great value there.
Hmm.
And man, my first time there, when we were down there together, I first day, like I didn't even check into my Airbnb. I still have my bags. I pull up to a coffee shop waiting for my Airbnb guy. They're slow like Tapatillas. And and there was just like regular white girls at this coffee shop. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what in the world are they possibly doing here? Like what like maybe they did a triangle route with Argentina, but I was just thinking, like, what are they here for? So it's already there's like a pretty large foreigner presence there, um, and yeah, like I don't know, like I don't think there's a place that has dethroned Mexico, but I just don't think there's that many good places to live. like from Alaska to Patagonia. I think that you can count the decent places to live on one hand.
Hmm. Maybe it's up to you to be the builder, to build the city of the future.
Oh yeah, like Akon.
Yeah, like Akon.
Like Akon. Well, I have to actually do it. I don't know if I'm going to take on something like that. I mean, it's still nice here, but it's not as clear to me. Like Mexico was I still think it's the best, but it's yeah, it's changed. It's more debatable. The rest of Central America, there's really not much going on. Costa Rica is very nice. Very small, also very nice place. Haven't been there in even longer than El Salvador. Um, but there's just not so much happening. Colombia is super dangerous. Just the I used to do risk assessment professionally, and
Mm.
like for a guy in Colombia, the risk of getting drugged and robbed seems to be very very high. Actually, my friend sent me a story that had happened to him last Thursday, I think,
No,
very recently. Yeah,
really?
yeah. It's an interesting one. He ended up not losing anything. He got drugged, and the girl like stayed there and didn't rob. And it wasn't scopolamine. It was like just a sleeping pill. But yeah, the risk of getting drugged and robbed. Because if you think risk assessment, even if it's a low probability, if the severity is really high, like they're clearing out people's bank accounts and crypto wallets, crypto's gone for good. Bank, maybe you can get that back or part of that back. But the stakes are very, very high. Like most of the cases I've heard, the guys end up losing like multiple five figures when they get drugged and robbed. So that's
Hmm.
a high severity. Um, that's I don't think that's going away anytime soon because every time I go through Bogota airport, man, it is just lines of gringos. And I know a lot of people are connecting to other countries, but I mean it's there's a lot that are like doing like Medellin and elsewhere, Cartagena and that shit. Like yeah, I'm not sold that there is a new king, but it doesn't. Yeah, but Mexico's certainly changed. So I'm not. I don't know if it's still king. Um, I'll do some research. Maybe I'll go to Europe and come back and do my European life.
So there's no new king. It's just everything sucks now.
Oh man, when you say it like that. Yeah, everywhere sucks. You just got to pick one.
It reminds me of a skit. Dude, I'm looking at the Mexico City temperature history, which
Mhm.
does kind of every year, and
Yeah,
2024 looks the exact same as 2021. And I didn't realize this,
I
but
wasn't
May is
here.
actually the hottest month,
Yeah,
and April is like the second hottest month. So I didn't realize that. So you
no,
really kind of caught the fierceness.
I wasn't here in 2021. This is my first summer since
What year? I can
2019.
see all the years. 2019.
2019 was the last
Okay,
spring I
okay.
was here.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's still saying
April, May.
high of 30,
No way.
low of
No way.
12.5
It's not.
consistently.
No. It was never 30 Celsius.
Okay.
It was never. It never was. No, man. We had a record high like 2 weeks ago here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, it's changed significantly. Yeah. I mean, if I was in a smaller apartment with air conditioning, it would be better, but yeah, this
Hmm.
place is not AC friendly.
Fair. Well, as a
Yes.
tip for people, sometimes people ask where should you go in the summer months because you can't go to Playa del
I
Carmen and stuff. You can't
know.
go to the Caribbean. You
So
can
few
go to
places.
Mexico City because in July, August, September, it's high of 25. The low is high as well. The low is around like 14, 15. So it's literally perfect and much more moderate
It rains
than
every
the
day
rest.
though.
Yeah, there might be rain.
It's gonna
Some
it
people,
rains every single day.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's cooler because it's rain season.
Uh huh.
I'm That's really funny because I've had this conversation with like a bunch of guys. those months are there's very few places, and I do have an answer, but there's no way I'm going to say it on, like, we have to turn off the recorder. But there's very few places that are good to be, like, in south of Texas in that time.
in the summer. Well, it's going
Yeah.
to be South America, I'm guessing, or somewhere in the mountains, like say Colombia, where the seasons are reversed, or at
Yeah, but
least
Pittsburgh's nice
moderate
that
year
time.
round.
I like being
Yeah,
in Pittsburgh. That's what I usually go to Pittsburgh. That's when I
I
go
mean,
visit
yeah, I
family.
mean that's a lot of. We have a lot of people that are sort of snowbirds, and they'll
Yeah.
do the summer in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh or the Northeast, whatever, and then
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's there's not that many good places, and most of the U.S. is hot too. Like, most of the U.S. gets hot. Like, it's just a lot of stuff gets hot. So it's yeah. Summer's yeah, you can find a few places if you really use your head. You could probably find a few places, but I don't know. I don't have anything more to add there.
okay. Well, I mean, it's, it's not going to be much better in Phoenix.
Yeah, it is going to be better because you got AC everywhere, man. And even if you call an Uber, the Uber uses air conditioning. They don't just roll down the windows when it's 93 degrees out.
Mm-hmm.
So like Texas, man. When I lived in Texas, during it was actually a problem because everyone there's so big, they have to turn the AC way up to cool off. So if you're, like, in reasonably good shape and you're in Texas, you're going to be freezing cold inside during the summer.
So tell me this. Run me like a thought experiment here. So Mexico City, Buenos Aires, other places you've lived, very like vortex zone, urban environments, like biggest city vortex zone. I know you've done trips, but that's kind of
Florianopolis.
your, huh?
I started in Florianopolis.
Florianopolis.
Yeah.
Okay, it's still city-ish, I guess. But anyway, so
No. Yeah.
my point is, what's do you see of like how would you play the US or I guess play Arizona where are you just going to get a random 3-bedroom house with the garage and the gravel driveway and the cactus sticking up and a Ford Mustang and live in the suburbs, or are you going to do like some kind of urban thing, or how do you see that you like what would be your ideal setup in the US where maybe you want some elements of that walkability as we mentioned, or like basically just taking your learnings from a decade in South America, a decade of lifestyle design and optimization, having lived in many different places, and applying your lifestyle design skills in the US.
Yeah, that's good. So I mentioned Scottsdale because I just came from there and I'm connected to a community there, a really good community. But I would definitely go for a place where I don't need a car, for starters, because you're gonna end up having to buy all new shit anyway. Like, you probably have to buy new furniture and all this. Adding a car expense, just the complication. Even if you remove the cost, just the complication of getting a new car is such a huge task. I would go to I would be looking at one of the few walkable cities, and then just assume I'm going to blow like $400 a month on Uber or more. Be just, when I want to go to a different neighborhood. So I'd go for a walkable city. Tampa would be like an easy way to go back in because Tampa's inexpensive. Um, Although a year in Tampa, I'd get bored. That might fall into the other parts of Mexico category.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, walkable city first, get all my shit, and then if after a year there, I would look to move somewhere else. I don't think I'm ever going to live in the suburbs. That sounds really awful. Like, it sounds awful.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would rather live on a farm than in the burbs.
Yeah.
I'd rather have I actually, we'll talk about this. I know we got to wrap soon. I had a vision. I was going out to visit farms, coffee farms, and I had this vision of, like, having a small farm. I don't know if it's coffee or what, but having a small farm where I participate in like the local trade in a small town, but then also owning an apartment or maybe a small house in a city. And this is like with kiddos, and we just go between the two, and we live between those two places. I think that's a pretty strong possibility. So one small city, a house in a small city. I think once you cross 2 million, everyone just becomes unpersonable. And if you look at a big list, there are a lot of cities with metro areas of about 2 million. So aim for about 2 million people um, in the metro area and have some land outside. So you pretty much go past the burbs and you're either out in the country on the farm or you're in the city or like yeah, you're in the city. That's a vision I think I may be doing as I get older.
Hmm, very cool. I want to see you start like an Ethiopian coffee company in Mexico and just confuse the shit out of everyone. It's gonna be
Oh,
like
dude,
Pan Africa coffee.
bro, I'm
Like,
gonna bring I'm gonna bring workers in too.
no, no.
What? No, why not? I'm incriminating myself.
They're gonna be like, why are these Ethiopians like making the coffee here? Like we run the coffee here, type of
No,
thing.
yeah,
It's gonna be a turf war.
we're gonna start bringing in Ethiopian coffee. I mean, a lot of Mexican coffee like is not grown at high elevation, and so it's not a pure Arabica. It's a
Mm,
hybrid of Robusta Arabica,
mm.
and that is like ask anyone who's a professional in the space, they're going to tell you that's a lower quality
Yeah.
coffee
How
bean.
does
So we're
Ethiopia
going to
win
bring it.
then? Because
How
they
does
win a lot of awards. How do they win the awards if the elevation's low?
Ethiopia's at super high elevation. Addis is the same elevation as Mexico City, 2,500 meters, give or take.
Wow.
Yeah, the Addis is the main city in Ethiopia. It's the same. Anyone listening, I'm half Ethiopian. If you're like, what is this guy talking about? Uh, yeah, so it's the same elevation. It's very mountainous. Very Ethiopia is very very mountainous. So yeah, that's they grow pure
Yeah, that's
Arabica,
funny.
and it's like man, that's their whole economy.
I'm gonna have to look into this.
Mhm.
Yeah, so someone's probably listening to this or like, okay, what the hell did I get from this episode? So basically, the cost. It's like Vance, you're not doing a good job of
Stay
selling
home.
Latin America,
Stay
right?
home.
Just stay home and
Yeah.
maybe move to friggin' Charleston, South Carolina, or something. Um, no, I think part of it. I think well, the biggest factor is rent. Like rent is one of your biggest expenses because, as we talked about in Latin America, you don't need a car, so rent's your biggest variable. And it could like in Mexico City, rent could be as cheap as I don't know, $250 if you really wanted it to be, or
Yeah.
as much as 2K. And
Yeah.
then there's sort of like a sweet spot somewhere in the middle depending on the neighborhood
Well,
and
the
the
range is
amenities that you
the
need.
range is a lot bigger. The rent would be like
More, yeah,
yeah, up to probably 4K.
up to
And
4K.
the sweet
And
spot in the middle is the 2K.
and what I've noticed is people are paying like vastly different things. Like some people are paying. One of our expat friends is paying like I think he's paying 1,500 or 1,800 for like a 4 bedroom place, and so if he just split that with buddies, he'd be paying like nothing because that's
Yeah.
he's paying like a grand for like
He did
a
good.
4 bedroom place in Navarte,
He
and
did good.
it's pretty chill.
Yeah.
And so if it's a grand, technically there's 4 rooms, maybe there's three you guys, you're paying like $350 each. You can't really replicate that in the States that much anymore. Where like in the States, I feel like it's pretty much 1,000 a bedroom anywhere minimum, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't lived in the I should have prefaced this at the beginning. From 21 through from the beginning of 2021 through the middle of 2023, I was in Airbnbs mostly bumming around like a lot of South America. Like I
Hmm.
was all around South America living in I couldn't tell you how many prob maybe 10 different cities. But I was like really going around and just hoping for like that next find, like, oh man, what's this place? What's this place? And it's just not there. There's not just a place where I show up and everything's great. Um, so yeah, so I'm like, man, Mexico City just is the best on paper. So I came back here just to see that I knew it had changed. I'd say the one thing that didn't get me was the weather because I don't know. He's pulling up like fakenews.com on the weather. It's way hotter here than it used to be.
One thing I would say though about Mexico City that I like is another thing is that it's really a lot more plug and play than almost any American
Oh,
city,
so much
where
more. So
where
much
I could
more.
get a 1 month Airbnb or literally even a 1 week Airbnb, and I'm like right in the game. I can, I have. There's gonna be some tacos nearby. There's gonna be uh, like a gym or whatever I need. Whereas like if you just book randomly a month or a week in the U.S., like you might not really have all the amenities kind of built in within
Yeah.
walking distance.
Yeah, that's
And
true. Mexico City is definitely plug and play. It still holds that. That hasn't gone away. It still
hmm
has a lot of the charm that it had
hmm
before. But yeah, it's very plug and play. I
So I
mean,
mentioned rent. We
like
we got to kind of wrap up. I mean,
okay,
I think there are these intangible benefits of Latin America, like how it's plug and play, uh, the family values, the walkable cities, the not needing a car. Um, I think a lot of we didn't mention the services too, but like it's a lot easier to get a massage or a shoe shining or like whatever the hell, right?
house
Um,
cleaning. House cleaning is like $25.
hmm
That's
And
pretty
then
nice.
house cleaning. I think another one is also getting into the culture. Like if it sounds maybe trite, but if you just purely look at Latin America as just like a place for Airbnbs and gyms that are walking distance type of thing, like on some level you'll find what you're looking for, but it's sort of like an empty pursuit. But if you really get into the culture and the music and the history and kind of appreciate that you're living in Tenochtitlan or whatever it is, and really appreciate some of these things, and maybe get more involved in the community, I think you can build like a deeper connection.
Yeah. On that note, I have not done that a year living in Polanco, and I did previously. Like I always had local friends that I saw before, but because Polanco's like richer people, they're a lot more closed off socially, and not even talking about dating, just like making guy friends at the gym.
hmm
My only guy friend at the gym is a Brazilian dude because we're both foreigners. Whereas I like literally my 30th birthday party, the building got mad and I had to pay them more because 50 people showed up for it. And it was mostly people from my gym. Like everyone came for a barbecue for my 30th. And that was dope. So I've had that. I don't have it here. I thought it's just like rich Latino culture. They're very, very closed
hmm
off. And I'd say that's been consistent anywhere I've been. Some people say Colombians are more open to it, but like the country has massive, and Ethiopians are this way too, big time, even more than Latinos, I'd say. Uh, but like when there's massive wealth inequality, the one percenters are just very like they're closed off. It's almost like a survival mechanism. So I don't
Right, right,
blame them
right.
for it. Yeah, because
That
like
is a
they're
good
like,
point.
yeah, yeah, because they're like we're the only people who have any means. So like we only keep to ourselves. So yeah, that's what I've seen here, and I kind of knew that, but I thought like I'm pretty talkative. Like I'm making Vance go over when he needed to go 5 minutes ago. So like for me to not make friends living anywhere for a year is almost impossible. This is actually the only place I've lived in Latin America where I don't have friends I've made in my neighborhood.
Well, Joe, you're going to get a whole bunch of new friends when I put the link in the show notes, and people can get in touch with you. Um, Maybe take this time to just leave the audience with a message. Any final words before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I've come on. I've been a bunch of gripes. A bunch of it's not how it used to be. So anyone who is new or who's been doing this, I would say you should challenge everything I said and say like, no, I'm going to find that place because gyms still do exist. So I would say think about what it is. Like, do you want something really adventurous? Do you love the beach? Do you like if you love surfing, living on the beach? I would say like the amount of homework you can do. When I started this, there was nothing. There's like nothing to find online. Now everything's on YouTube. Just you just have to listen in a different language. To anyone who's like not traveled around Latin America that much, I would say do more homework. Don't go to the obvious places that everyone goes to. Do more homework on where you can go. Language is a must. So just get on Italki and hire a teacher now. Uh, and like try to find what the place
Mhm.
is, like what how I described Mexico City 2017 this was amazing. And obviously everyone knew Mexico City existed, but we all thought it was dangerous. So say do your homework, talk to network and meet with other people who have lived abroad, and really try to find like this is what I want this adventure. I want to live on the beach and go surfing every morning before I start work. Whatever it is, like do more, do like double the homework that
That's
anyone
it.
else would do, and
And
stay
the
off of
best
like the
way to do
most obvious.
homework is
YouTube.
subscribe to the My
Oh,
Latin Life podcast.
subscribe to
Uh,
the Latin Life podcast, but YouTube, you got the visuals. It's man, if they had travel YouTube like this when I was 25, man, I would have, I would have been. I mean, whatever. I got there anyway.
It's true.
Yeah.
So this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, our guest today, Joe Dejene, repeat guest. Joe, thank you for coming on. Thank you to the audience for listening. We drop 2 episodes a week, so please subscribe. Won't want to miss an episode. Ciao for now.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by BitRefill. BitRefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. Introducing Rolf Haltza's Paycheck Multiplication Layering Method, a revolutionary approach that redefines the traditional career path. This is Rolf's new Done With You program where he'll work with you to implement job stacking for yourself. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, are you ready to step out of the shadows of job insecurity and step into a world of career abundance? Then just click the link in the description of this episode, book a call with Rolf, and start walking the path of unleashing your earning potential with job stacking.